So from the first day that we could see over the shop counter in my parents' business, which was a greengrocer's, we were expected to work. And quite often in serving customers in the business, my parents would randomly shout out items of produce in a bid to upsell and cross-sell. One day, it was a particularly warm day in the spring, I was serving one of our regular customers. And in ordering her radishes and lettuce and whatever else, my dad suggested that she might need a cucumber. Bear with me. She, being an older lady that lived on her own, that was widowed, said to my dad, "Oh no, I will never use half of it, I'll end up throwing it away." My dad promptly pulled out a trimming knife, cut it in two and told me to charge her half. Now, I recount this story often because it reminds me of three very important things. One is that you have to know your customers' needs and that they change. Two is that we only exist to make a profit as people in business. And three, sometimes you need to change in order to be successful. Thank you. This is a rather crudely drawn version of the Kubler-Ross change curve, which I'm sure you'll be familiar with. It maps the stages that you move through during change or loss or grief. It's used by counsellors, and more recently I've experienced it being used by HR professionals during merger and acquisition. My experience is that it's also highly relevant when you're trying to innovate, particularly in an incumbent organisation. This is Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, hence the Hopperisms. She was an innovator, leader, scientist. She invented a programming language, and many, many quotes have been attributed to her. I've borrowed a few for this evening. For insurance incumbents, there is safety in the known. We make decisions based on historical data and past performance. Innovation, by its very virtue, can lack hard evidence of its success. My experience of innovating in insurance organisations is that mindset is absolutely key. When threatened with change, some people embrace, while others wed themselves to processes and the way things are currently done. This can be on an individual basis or collectively. So, legacy systems aren't the only issue. Clinging to a process for safety can be one of the most difficult challenges that I've found in overcoming. These processes evolve. They're safe, they're known, they're approved, they cover people's backsides, and there's safety when someone does try and look over the parapet. But it's this reason that many of the processes in large organisations are wholly unfit for purpose, particularly when it comes to innovation. And not to demean any department or process, all of whom have offered phenomenal value to large businesses, some examples of where they can trip you up. In procurement, I've often faced the challenge of past financial performance and credit rating being a barrier to creating a new supplier, which is fine until you want to work with a startup who was born maybe only 3 or 4 months ago. In terms of legal, quite often when we want to work with new innovative suppliers, they revert to their IT contracts for form. So you spend lots of time explaining why there is no UAT with this particular provider, or repeating their security credentials time and time again. The irony being that a lot of the providers that I choose to work with have greater security credentials than some of my employers. Or in IT, where you're going to use SaaS technology, it's challenging the very parameters of where the IT department sits and what their remit is. You can challenge their very involvement in your project at all, because if you involve them, you may have to do the dreaded RFP. Another process likely to be designed for huge investment projects rather than low-cost experimentation, proof of concept that have little or no risk in their investments. As incumbents, our processes can be the limiting factor in innovation, in the same way that technology has sometimes determined the functionality and therefore the customer experience that we take to market. You may be familiar with the behaviours that I'm describing. Blindly trying to block change rather than use it as a catalyst. If not, an example that might remind you, forward. When faced with the introduction of Uber, instead of creating a virtual block by upping their game and creating innovative and enhanced customer solutions, black cabbies literally blocked the roads. They caused frustration amongst the very group of their customer base that they were trying to engage. So, I've talked about some of the challenges. How do you overcome these? Well, my experience so far, make sure you have senior buy-in at the very highest of levels, because you will be challenged and those challenges will be escalated. Have a great commercial strategy underpinning your innovation, so it's not innovation for innovation's sake. Let the opportunity be the guide and not the capability of the technology. Work with people and providers that you trust and who get it. You're going to spend a lot of time with them and you're going to need a lot of favours from them. You have to be relentlessly positive, polite and patient. You have to know who in your organisation will come with you naturally, who will need some persuading, and who you just have to leave behind. It's been suggested to me that these proportions are a third, a third, and a third. I'd say that was about right. Pick your battles. Where you can comply easily, do so and save your energy for the big fights later on. Listen. Challenges from smart people are a really good thing, particularly if they're coming from a place of experience and good intentions, and they can save you energy further down the line. Lead from the front. Ask and challenge why at every single opportunity. And develop a very thick skin, because people can take change as a personal affront to their performance. And if all else fails, do it anyway. Most importantly, please take advantage of any opportunity for an insurance person to disrupt our industry rather than waiting for someone else to come along. I'm going to leave you with an anecdote which was recently retold to me by an innovation consultant called Drew Fobister. He reminded me of an experiment that was conducted where 5 monkeys were placed in a cage with a hand of bananas at the top of a ladder. When one of the monkeys attempted to climb the ladder to reach the bananas, the technician sprayed him and each of the other 4 monkeys with a jet of water. Eventually, the monkey tries again, and the same thing happens. And so it continues until the monkey attempts to climb the ladder, and all the other monkeys pull him away. At this stage, the lab remove one of the monkeys. When the new monkey is inserted into the cage, he attempts to climb the ladder to get the bananas until all the others pull him away. Eventually, each of the 5 monkeys is replaced. None of the 5 monkeys have ever now experienced the cold water jets, and none of them attempt to climb the ladder. None of them know why. Thank you.